big list or whatever, you end up having some that are just fucking dead on exactly what you're looking for with the vibe, and then some that just capture maybe an aspect of that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and I think that's cool. That's what I think is so cool about this list that we have. It's just like this huge fucking, 75 uh, input list, and it's, I don't know, it's just extensive. To me, it hits on every style and type, and like I said before, there's even some on there I haven't seen or heard of. So, I've looked some up since then too, and like, downloaded them or added them to my list on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's been pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And that's what the whole podcast is about, discussing this and I guess what cyberpunk sort of is, because
Yeah,
that in itself is not an easy thing to describe.
exactly. But yeah, it looks like, let me just double check that all the sites are connecting, and then we'll go live. All right, cool. All right, we're good to go. So, hey, everybody, I'm Rob Mulligan, the Game Master, and this is Cyberpunk Uncensored. It's a podcast that I'm doing. I'm not sure if it's going to be going weekly or monthly or daily or what. I don't know what I'm going to do with it exactly yet. I just know it's all about cyberpunk and anything cyberpunk related. Um, if you're listening to this at the podcast or whatever, and you want to get a visual, you can go to youtube.com/mulligan live. That's typically where I stream the live games. I run two different teams weekly. Those stories are set in the same space or whatever, but it's two completely separate teams. And that's where I stream those games. But I'm also streaming today's podcast because I want people to really take advantage of this badass list we're going to get into. But before we get into it, oh, and let me mention, if anybody's watching the live stream, anybody watching the Mulligan Live on YouTube or the Facebook, or you're in the Cyberpunk Uncensored group or whatever, and you got to take off, you can no longer be on social media, and it's easier for you to kind of plug that podcast and check that out while you're hitting the road or whatever. Just look up Cyberpunk Uncensored. It's on, I don't know, like a dozen or more sites. Anywhere you can think of to find a podcast, it's fucking there, I'm sure. So check that out. But yeah, before we get into it, I want to mention that I've got two awesome guests with me today. These guys are fucking awesome. It's Sean and Eric. Both of them play characters in Team 1 and Team 2 of the Cyberpunk campaigns that I'm running weekly. Eric plays a fixer on Team 2. Sean plays media on Team 1. But yeah, hey guys, why don't you introduce yourself, Sean?
Yeah, I'm Sean Gilhooly. Been into cyberpunk pretty much since close to the beginning that I was aware of it, at least in the early 80s.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Eric Gonzalez. I got into cyberpunk probably about 10 years ago, officially, when I had a friend give me a box of all his 2020 books. But I've been sort of watching and enjoying cyberpunk probably since I was a kid, and just been watching movies and TV. So I've
Nice.
really fallen into the culture now.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and just anybody that's not familiar with my history or love of role playing games, I used to play D&D back in the day, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons AD&D Second Edition to be specific. And then I got into Cyberpunk 2020 when it came out, and been playing that, on and off throughout my life. Haven't played in a real long time. Got back into D&D when that kind of got real popular with the 5th edition. Being featured on Stranger Things and South Park and stuff. I mean, it just blew the fuck up. Got back into that, and then found out like Red was coming out, and I was like, oh my god, time for me to get back into Cyberpunk, because I loved Cyberpunk back in the day. And so like, I got into the starter kit, and that's how we're running our games, with a little bit of 2020 rule supplementation when needed. But definitely excited for Red coming out, as I know everybody else is too. And then later in the year, the video game, Cyberpunk 2077, that's going to be amazing. But yeah, that's who I am anyways. But we, all of us, we run this group in Facebook. If you're on Facebook, check it out, Cyberpunk Uncensored. Go to Facebook, search for Cyberpunk Uncensored. I think it's listed as Cyberpunk 2020 Red 2077 Uncensored. But yeah, we run a group there, and we recently posted this poll asking all group members to kind of list their favorite cyberpunk themed or styled movies and TV shows, and just any that you can think of in general. So everybody started listing them, people started voting on their favorites and such, and we got this list up to 75. I belong to other cyberpunk groups, and I always see people asking for cyberpunk related content, and I see people commenting and stuff, and they'll get up to a handful or more. But I love this list. We got all the way up to 75 people voted, so they're kind of ranked by popularity, at least within the Cyberpunk Uncensored group. And anyways, yeah, it's here. Let's just dive into it, guys. I'd like to start at the bottom, and we'll just go through them. If we have seen them or know about them, let's just explain what they are. If we haven't, obviously, let's just be honest and say that,
I do not know Omniscient.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one either. Since you posted it, Rob, you got to give us the rundown.
Yeah. It's well, I don't know a lot about it, but I think it's like subliminal advertising. It's like a futuristic show. It's on Netflix. I added it to my list a while back, and I haven't dove into it, yet. But I did see I did see like a bunch of reviews and stuff online, and people sharing about it in other groups. And when I got to reading kind of what it was about, I cut myself short because I didn't want to really dive into it, but it definitely had that vibe. And I saw a trailer for it, so I was like, got to at least list it. But judging by 0 votes and stuff, I don't think that many have seen it that either.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it out now, though.
Yeah, no, it's on Netflix, I believe. And same with Kiss Me First. I think that one I added that one because I also saw that on Netflix. I haven't had the chance to check it out, but it's an animated one, and I believe it's about like a society living in a virtual reality or something to that extent, and like somebody kind of breaking that barrier and getting back to like real life, or maybe in Cyberpunk what you would call meat space or something. But it definitely had that vibe, and it looked really cool.
Yeah, that's actually been on my queue on Netflix, so
Nice.
I'm right there with you. It looks interesting, but I haven't got a chance to really sit down and watch it.
Yeah. Desert Punk. Desert Punk I know only because I've seen it listed with other ones that I've seen, and I added it to my list of things to look up and see. I don't remember if it's on any particular site for streaming, but I had it on a list with these other ones. To be honest, I haven't seen it. When I looked it back up, I was like, okay, yeah, it's got that vibe when you look at it, but it's more of like a post-apocalyptic. But like we said, in a list, maybe some things aren't hitting 100% on. They just have certain aspects.
No, it's not 100% cyberpunk. I've read the manga that is based on, and it was really good. It has good character development. It definitely is more on that post-apocalyptic sort of Mad Max, like the world's already decayed kind of situation, but you have those feelings of these individual loner characters, big corporations still around, like the little guy against that big guy, the authoritarian almost.
Nice.
And it does sort of hit that thing of post-apocalyptic. Like for anybody who's going to be like a nomad type character or in that setting, I think Desert Punk has a lot of good inspirations for that.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out because I've got that big comic book collection and Mad magazines and mangas and stuff. So I haven't seen that, so I'm gonna have to look that up too, maybe before I look for the animated version.
Yeah, I think they went on hiatus a few years ago, so they never got an official finish. But the anime was decent too, from what I heard.
Okay, and then we've got Black Hat. Does anybody know about Black Hat?
Yeah, Black Hat was the movie with one of the Chris Hemsworth, I think. Chris Hemsworth, the other one.
The other.
And it was the other Hemsworth. Like there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
All of them are pretty decent actors. But no, Black Hat was a hacker-based movie, actually. A very modern hacker-based movie. I think it was mid to late 2000s or early 2010s. But yeah, he was hacker, got arrested, and is now needed to go after another hacker.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and everything was really well done, sort of fit that situation of very grounded in reality hacking.
Yeah, it's funny because I see the movie Hackers listed here, and that's always been like a sort of cyberpunk go-to vibe. Like even if it doesn't have cybernetic arms and futuristic weapons and like all that sort of shit, just the aspect of like hacking computers and servers and networks and stuff always has that like Netrunner cyberpunk vibe. It's funny.
Yeah, I would definitely say like just the net itself is a key component of what makes Cyberpunk stand out. Like the cybernetics is really important and the aesthetics, but it's like you need the network, you need an authoritarian government, you need the little guys scraping by. It's like those, if you can get some of those, you sort of just hit that cyberpunk feeling of a story.
Yeah. All right. What's
Yeah, I
in?
thought Hackers was more like pre-cyberpunk.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like any
A
type,
little bit, yeah.
any
It's a
type of,
very modern version of it.
yeah. To me, any type of like hacker style movie always feels like it's like leading into cyberpunk. Like I said, it has all that Netrunner vibe, but without the cybernetics and real futuristic style shit. But it still has that aspect. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I think trying to find that perfect aspect of cyberpunk is almost near impossible because cyberpunk is always at
Right.
that little cusp of like a big change in things.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
think
like is
that
it right?
I do think that's about to change, though. I think with Red coming out and how popular 2077 is getting, if that comes out and does well and it gets as mainstream as D&D is becoming, I think we're going to see it, making some cameos on shows and stuff. That cartoon's going to be coming out on Netflix.
Yeah.
Plus, they're working on some serious shows now, like Neuromancer, Snow Crash, and Cowboy Bebop.
Yep.
Yeah, and all three of those are really good.
Oh, yeah.
And like they,
Yeah.
they sit in that perfect sort of cyberpunk world.
Totally.
Exactly.
So, yeah, Goku Midnight Eye. This is one of yours, Eric.
Yeah, this is actually another
Actually,
anime.
it looks like the next handful you posted. So why don't you
Yeah,
take us down this section of the list?
All right, well, I guess I'll start with Almost Human. That was a Fox TV series. It was a little bit more. It had Carl Urban. We know him from Dread too, so he's pretty much a staple of cyberpunk almost. And like Michael Early, I can't say much about him because I've only seen him in a few things, but both were really solid actors. And it plays on the more cop and android aspect of in the like a post cyberpunk world where is that nitty gritty is gone, but you still have the authoritative elements. You have like these corporations with a lot of power wielding it, and people are just trying to figure out what really it is to be human. So it definitely touches on a lot of the transhuman and adjusting to that situation. And I would say that was a solid series, but Fox canceled it way too early.
Is it a remake of a European show?
No, that the one with werewolves, vampires, and ghosts is entirely different.
No. No, there was one about I bought like the first season. I thought it was called that too, and it's I think Swedish or something like that. And they have like a household android that looks just like a person.
I wouldn't be able to tell you that off the top of my head. I
All right,
don't think it was, but I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of good stuff comes out of Europe when it comes to film and TV, and
For sure.
we get a lot of remakes. But I would definitely recommend Almost Human to anybody who wants to play like a lawman type character in
Yeah.
any of their cyberpunk settings. It just has a great feel for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Ultra. I see you listed Ultraviolet there too. I love that movie.
Ultraviolet has a special place in my heart because I think
Yeah.
even though it doesn't have all the cyberpunk elements, when it comes to style and aesthetic, through the roof. It
Yeah,
does hit on all the
exactly.
cyberpunk colors, movement, action
Oh, it's
scenes.
all
It's
about
like,
cool. You know what I mean? The cool
Yes, it
stat.
is.
It's all about that cool stat.
and that's just a great one.
Oh yeah. What about Goku Midnight Eye?
Goku Midnight Eye is a throwback to another anime. That one sort of skims on what it is to be cyberpunk. It has a private detective who's going against big corporations, corrupt lawman, and he gets sort of this magical cybernetic eye which lets him hack everything in the world. So you have a private investigator who's also a super net runner going against big corporations. It's
Nice.
over the top. It's all action. It is pretty much a power fantasy, but you're just going to sit through it and enjoy it. It is all stylized like Ultraviolet is, even less story, I want to say.
Cool. And I'm familiar with Rollerball.
Love Rollerball.
Rollerball is awesome.
There's an original and then the remake, right? There's two of those, right?
We don't talk about the remake.
Yeah, I don't like the remake.
I was gonna say. And then
The
so
original's
everyone
awesome, though.
everyone knows about that. Yeah, it has that sort of Running Man vibe. It was like the original. It's awesome. But
Yeah, it has
it has
that
that
very
post.
big corporation,
Yeah,
little guy
yeah.
kind of situation.
Exactly.
I mean, when you have like an apartment that comes fully furnished, which means you get a girlfriend. Kind of interesting.
Oh yeah.
It was a weird world.
Yeah. And then you got Guns Akimbo.
This is actually a recent one for me. This has
Yeah.
this was posted in a friend's, like they were talking about movies. He posted there. I saw it pop up on Amazon.
Yep.
Watched it. Has who's the guy who plays Daniel Radcliffe, guy who plays Harry Potter.
Yep.
It if you want to imagine what the combat zone looks like, watch Guns Akimbo. It is a lot of action. You're putting this very normal geeky guy into a situation where he is gonna die. Like he has two handguns grafted to his hands, and he's told to go kill this one girl who is really high 90% of the time. And they just bounce around between lawlessness, cops, corrupt cops, all kinds of weird stuff, and just they're shooting galore. But it has the most combat zone feel I've ever seen in a film.
Oh,
I would
love
definitely recommend it for anybody who wants to be a solo.
Oh, it's in my list when you mentioned it the other day. I think me and you were talking about stuff, and we talked about that a little bit, and so I already added it to my list because I saw it. I think like you did too. I saw the ads, and when I read it, I was like, okay, that sounds pretty fucking cool. And then I forgot about it, and then you mentioned it the other day, and you explained it a little more, and I was like, oh shit, sold, and I added that shit to my list. It's on my Amazon to watch list. But yeah, let's move down this list. Love, Death, and Robots. I think I added that. That already has a bunch of votes. That's a little higher up.
I wasn't sure.
And I want to say I added Ultraviolet at one point.
There it is. I just saw different spelling.
Oh no, I added. I was thinking of Equilibrium or something. I always get those.
Same director.
Yeah, I always get those titles and those mixed up. Okay, yeah. Let's keep going up the list here. And we can skip. If there is a double, I don't think there is. It's just there because of the different spelling, probably. But we can mention that twice because it is that fucking good. Love, Death, and Robots. I love.
Oh, that was I saw that.
So
I knew
good.
that Cyberpunk was going to come back again.
Oh man, yeah, and I've literally watched through those like I don't know 2 or 3 times over the past like half a year or whatever. I love them. I love all of them.
It's a solid series.
Yeah, but we'll hit that again. I'm pretty sure I had that listed as one of my favorites, and I think a lot of people voted on it. I think it's higher up the list. But
yeah, I think it's like top 10.
Yeah, keep us going down the list because you have 1, 2, 3. I think 3 more here.
I have a lot.
But right here in this row, just to keep them in order. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hopefully, I don't know if we have the same list or not, but
I don't think we do.
yeah. Well, the next one up from Guns Akimbo was Nirvana. I don't actually know anything about that movie or at all or show series, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, like I said, let's do yours right here. Let's go in order.
Okay. What was the last one I talked about? Rollerball, Soylent Green.
No, we have Automata here.
That's actually what the the guy in Desperado.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Automata or Venus Wars, but I definitely am familiar with Soylent Green. It's a classic. But tell us about Automata and Venus Wars.
Automata was, I think it was a Spanish movie. It has Antonio Banderas in it. Pretty much it's on the end of post-apocalypse. The world's falling down. Corporations are trying to keep things going. There's only a few city-states. And robots have sort of become they're doing everything because people can only really work out in the waste for so long. And you have these robots that are sort of becoming the major population. And you're just seeing this guy who repairs them more like he does insurance for robots. And he just sort of starts picking up all these little clues that there's more behind the scenes. And it has a really solid cast: Dylan McDermott, Melanie Griffith, Antonio Banderas.
Oh, nice.
And it tells a really solid story, I say. And it's like, so if you want to sort of see that more transhumanism, like more to the substance of Cyberpunk, this is one of those ones.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
What about Venus Wars?
Venus Wars is again another throwback of the anime, like during those 80s, early 90s. Think more of is pretty much invasion of one country to another on Venus, and you see these biker kids sort of get tossed in the middle of this whole war, and you start to see them become this guerrilla group, get enlisted, and just all these sort of watching a perspective of like a war from a kid's point of view and just being pulled into it. So I think that has a lot of that resonates a lot with sort of things being out of control and you're trying to fight back against a system that doesn't understand where you're coming from.
Oh yeah. And you've got
And also they
Soylent.
have great styles of like mono bikes and all these really cool visuals.
Nice. Then you've got Soylent Green here. I imagine you're referring to
Yeah.
the classic.
Like Rollerball is sort of that big corporation that gets a little
Yeah.
guy and everything going on behind the scenes. It's a lot less cyber than I prefer, but I think the themes are still there.
For sure.
And then what about anybody know what Nirvana is? Is that the anime?
No, I wouldn't. No, I
That's
hadn't
with
heard of it.
Lambert, I believe.
What was that, Sean?
I think it's with Christopher Lambert.
Huh.
I think. I haven't seen it, but
Well,
I've seen ads for it.
Well, anybody listening, if you're listening to the podcast or you're watching the live stream on YouTube, leave us a comment if you've heard of that. Any of these that we haven't heard of, fill us in.
Okay, I did look it up.
Uh-huh.
Sean is right. Christopher Lambert, so a guy from Highlander,
Oh, okay.
great star. Uh, it looks like it's very much a virtual reality game designer, and it's being attacked, and like his game is being attacked by a computer virus. I think I've actually watched this a long time ago, and it was weird.
Okay. What about what else do we have? Neo Tokyo. Marcus posted that.
I have not seen that. I think I've only heard of that.
Yeah, I think it.
I think that is another one of those anime
Yeah.
ones.
I like the title. I want to see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's got that Akira vibe. But
Exactly.
But yeah, if anybody knows more about that or a fan, let us know. What about Blood Drive?
I have not heard about Blood Drive, so I'd have to look that one up too.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I think
Neo
easier.
Tokyo and Blood Drive, definitely not familiar.
Pulled it up.
But I'd be
Apparently,
curious
it's a
to see.
dystopian future.
Blood Drive is?
Yeah,
Huh, okay. So it's got more of that probably post-apocalyptic vibe to it, or does it have that high-tech, low-life sort of cyberpunk?
I think it is more that post-apocalyptic. The
Okay.
reason they call it Blood Drive is you take a part in a race where your cars run on human blood.
Nice.
Damn, okay.
Yeah.
So definitely it's got that dystopian dark future sort of thing.
It's like Death Race 2000, but without the high budget,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. So Eric, you have this next one listed.
Appleseed.
No,
This is actually
no. I'm seeing what is it? Armitage 3?
I think
Yeah,
our
we
list.
we gotta update your list.
No, I mean I
But no, Armitage 3
this is
another
the newest
anime.
list. I mean, I
It
literally
takes-
opened it right before we started. It's 75 deep. I mean, unless you added them as we were
Well, Rob,
going live.
No, we have a different order, it seems.
Oh, it might have just put the no votes and the one votes in a different order.
The ties get mixed up.
Yeah, that's possible.
yeah, but I can talk about Armitage real quick.
Yeah,
It's
go for it.
It's an
I just want to go with
anime.
that because I have
uh,
the image of it while we're going, of their list.
Yeah, this one's actually an anime, 2 movies and OVA, but it was pretty much a cop meets cyborg, and it has the same kind of feel that you get from Almost Human, but there's a lot more style, a lot more visuals, very cyberpunk, I would say. Or
Yeah.
inching into the postmodern cyberpunk too, or post-cyberpunk world. But
Cool.
it's one of those mainstays of you're going to see hacking, you're going to see cybernetics, you're going to see gunfights, you're going to see
Oh.
bright neon clothes. Like visually, it's one of the better ones.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then after that, I've got Repo, the genetic opera. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it's a
I've
music.
only heard of it.
Yeah, it's a musical, which I'm not a big fan of musicals, but this is definitely unique. It's like big corporations like giving people organ transplants and synthetic body parts and organs basically, and like if they're late on payments, then the repo men come and they basically take your organs back. So they're like killing people, ripping them open and taking their organs back. But it's just like a kind of really dark, gory. The DP work and the actual filming, the lighting is very unique. It's got like a sort of, I don't know, like Dick Tracy meets Dark City vibe when it comes to like the colorization has like a very comic book feel. But if you hate musicals, you can probably tolerate it. I was able to, because it has enough of the good shit. You know what I mean? But you might like
No,
musicals,
I
and, and
understand.
and if you like musicals, you'll love this because it has the cyberpunk sort of dark fucked upness mixed with the music.
I have to definitely take a look at that then. I always sort of saw that, like the ads for the promos, and it just sort of looked like a horror musical to me. Didn't really, nothing really like stuck out to me, but I think I'll take a look at that
Yeah,
now.
check it out. You'll see. Yeah, and then I'm seeing on my list there's 2 votes now for Black Hat, so that has shifted up. So see, I think things are moving live for me as people are voting. Um, so who knows if that's the case with why the list is shifting, but it's still 75 deep, so we'll hit them all. So the next one is
We'll try.
Metropolis.
I know of Metropolis only through film class.
Okay. What's
Sean, you know, I think
Is that the original Metropolis, like from the back in the 20s?
it might be.
I'm
That's the
not
only one I could
sure.
think of.
It's listed by
Yeah,
Jonathan. It only has 2
it,
votes.
it works because it's about, this whole city that's run from machines down below and how things get out of control and stuff. I
Okay.
mean, it's a silent movie.
Yeah, that was like
Oh,
what,
okay.
1920s or earlier, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Well,
way.
hell, that might be the
Yeah,
And
very
then
first Cyberpunk.
they did it recently with
it could be,
they re-
honestly.
I think
What was that, Sean?
they redid it recently with Queen doing the soundtrack.
Oh,
Like
wow. Okay.
recently, could have been 10 or
Okay,
15
that's
years
really cool.
ago, I
Yeah,
think
I'll have to look
recently.
that up then. I like Queen. Um, so yeah, the next one on our list we've already talked about. It's Hackers. I see Eric added that. So we already know. Yeah, we talked about that. Next one, Ghost in a Shell, the 2017 live action film. Did anybody see that?
I did
Yeah.
not.
Oh, I did. Um, it was enjoyable, I guess. I mean, it wasn't bad.
I'm just a
I know a
big,
lot.
I'm a huge Ghost in a Shell fan. I
Yeah.
love all the films, all the anime. I don't care which version. I like all of them, to be honest.
Well, the anime was very good, and I don't know if the movie was as good as the anime, but it was pretty good, in my opinion.
All right, next
It
one.
had good action, anyways, and I think that one of the major problems people seem to have was that they had a white person playing a character that they assumed should be Japanese, even though she wasn't human; she was an
Right.
android. But
Yeah,
She's still
yeah,
human, just only a brain.
yeah.
exactly,
And then we have
really.
Ghost in a Shell, the new movie. Because I guess there's Ghost in
Yeah,
a Shell. Yeah, yeah.
well, I assume that's the new animes they're releasing because I
Right,
feel like they're what, onto the 4th or 5th movie, continuing from the original Ghost in the Shell movie
right. Yeah, there's and I think all those anime versions they're on like Crackle or Tubi or one of those. I think I saw them on one of
or
those apps.
Crunchyroll. There's a lot of them. Ghost in the Shell
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
lot going on with it.
I,
There's different
yeah,
stories, so it's a hard one to sort of follow from beginning to end. But
yeah. But I
I
love
Um,
think a lot
but
of them are really great.
yeah, and you can kind of
yeah,
jump into any of them. It's not like you have to watch them in order. Like you get it, and it just dives you into that fucking cyberpunk vibe. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Uh,
And Ghost in the Shell did a really good job of like not just going into the cyberpunk like aesthetic, but they went beyond it. I think they fall into the post cyberpunk world
oh
of
yeah, it's almost
like the
sci-fi
all
esque and
the
like
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and it really deals with more of that transhumanism of what it is to be human and where does technology end and we begin almost.
Oh yeah.
It's like there's a lot more philosophies that sort of got opened up because of cyberpunk. I think
Yeah,
where they're
oh
already
totally.
there.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree with you 100%. I think Ghost in a Shell is kind of that post cyberpunk, evolution or whatever of the philosophy in itself. But yeah, and I love the well, I won't get into it yet because I think it's listed, but it's not here yet. It probably got more votes. I'm not sure. But the next one that I got on my list here is Appleseed. And
Yeah,
you
that's
listed that.
one
I'm familiar. I have a couple of the comics and a couple of the books and stuff, but
Ye-
but I haven't watched a lot of the anime.
See, I've watched probably about half the animes they released. I saw the 80s one. I saw the first 2 new ones, and I know they were like an alpha and like Omega one they released. And I have all the comics too from Dark Horse. and it is, again, it is one of the quintessential, like it is solidly in there cyberpunk, like the visuals and just the character feels of how the transitioning. But I
Yeah,
still think
yeah.
it probably leans like Ghost in the Shell a little bit more at that post because everybody's already used to it in a way.
Right, right. And
Like
a
there's
lot of
not
these,
that.
what I see a lot of too is when it comes to anime, not many, and that's why I'm excited for that Netflix one that's like been, you know, got the exact IP from Cyberpunk, the anime that's going to come out next year. I'm excited for that
Hmm.
because it seems like up till now, most of the anime, like Ghost in the Shell, Appleseed, any of the other ones that we're going to mention, we're going to get into, like Cowboy Bebop and stuff, they're very cyberpunk, but all of them have that sci-fi space vibe. Like it's a little evolved from cyberpunk. It's not necessarily high-tech, low-life, stuck in that dystopian future, but still with that high-tech shit. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
like a little past, just like they made it a little bit beyond. So that's why I'm kind of excited for to see what happens, you know. And I think that we're going to get a lot of great content. Like I said, when Red comes out and then the video game comes out, it's just going to go. I hope and I believe that it's going to go so mainstream. We're going to see like a wave of new fans and content and people, and it's just going to blow up, hopefully.
Well, just because the fact that we have this many movies that have gone on for like the past technically 80 years, counting Metropolis. No, probably more 90 years now with Metropolis. So it's
Yeah.
like, so Cyberpunk's been around. People have been watching it. They just haven't had a core Cyberpunk like genre.
Right. Right.
Cyberpunk has always sort of been on the fringes. It's been niche. It hasn't been its own real solid genre.
Yeah.
And I think now people are starting to see that in like a list like this and us talking. I think they're going to find that group, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to
Yeah.
be good for the community as a whole.
No, exactly. Okay, so next on the list here, and I see you voted for it too, is Upgrade.
Yeah, that one I've only heard of. I think that Upgrade was the one with forgetting his name now. Played Bane, Tom Hardy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've only heard that one. It looked very cyberpunk to me,
It
and I
look,
think you seen it, Sean?
no, but it looks good. I want to. It's one of the few on my list. I only have about 3 or 4 I really wanted to see, but I'm gonna have a few more today. But
Yeah, yeah.
it was a look.
But it seems like it's that sort of on that fringe where cyberpunk is becoming a thing now. It's going upgrading for the modern era. So I want to see it. I just haven't found it on a streaming service yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then we have The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
I've seen it, but I'm not
That
sure how Cyberpunk.
Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say like it's funny.
that one's pretty crazy.
It got 3 votes though, but again, I think just like a lot, you know, it has some aspects, you know, it has some elements to it, but a majority of that to me is just it's not necessarily cyberpunk. I wouldn't say.
No.
Let's see. Next on the list, Outlaw Star.
I don't know it.
I've seen the anime.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if there was a manga for it, but I would definitely say there's a lot of it has those fringe elements of it.
Exactly.
Doesn't feel like a straight up cyberpunk, but some of the style is there. It definitely feels more like a sci-fi, but I can see where some of the elements are.
Yeah. Bubblegum Crisis. Crash.
That's a good one.
That is a really solid one, I think.
It is again a little too far in the future for my liking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they fly around in spaceships and stuff. So
Well, cyberpunk does too, but just not nearly as much. But this one has more of that android feel of that transhumanism.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
it's like in that same Ghost in the Shell vein of a little bit beyond, but they do have that growing pains.
Mhm.
So they're trying to deal with that. So you have a lot of low life feel to
yeah,
it.
and real like outlawish type characters.
Nice. What about iRobot? That's the next in the list.
That's a great one.
That-
That one, that's a series.
I will definitely say iRobot fits a lot of the aesthetics and a lot of that feel of a cyberpunk world, at
Yeah,
least
totally.
in the corporate zone.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel that low life part, but
And the hacking aspect, you know, actual hackers commented in on this and said it was pretty accurate, that they did a good job. It wasn't all fantastical in the way it was done.
Right. No, and I love when a film or series or something, you know, taps into enough of the elements of cyberpunk that you can love it, and they were backed with enough budget to pull it off to where you don't have to compromise in your own mind to like it, like a lot of, you know, for instance, a lot of go-to will be anime because you can get away with craziness by drawing it and creating it. When it comes to live action, it's very limited, and there's a lot of like B movie, B and D level content where it's like it is, and it's almost kind of cheesy, but you can enjoy that aspect of it because you're getting all those cyberpunk elements, and it's kind of refreshing when you get to see a big Hollywood mainstream production get it right in at least enough of the elements to enjoy it being a cyberpunk themed film.
Yeah, it was beating more on that sci-fi, and it had nothing to do with Asimov's book, but it was still really good, I think, for iRobot.
Yeah. Next here, Split Second.
Split Second.
If that's the one I'm thinking of with Justin Timberlake, that was actually surprisingly enjoyable because currency was removed from the world and everyone sort of gets paid in time to live. So the more work you do, or the more expensive, with
Justin Timberlake, and they had like the counter on their arm or something, right? Is that it?
No. Well, I am wrong. This is actually a movie called Split Second with Rutger Hauer.
Oh, okay.
Which actually is probably a much better one cyberpunk than the Split Second thing with the one I'm thinking of. But no, this one's actually Rutger Hauer. I saw a few people talking about this on YouTube. Is actually good-ish for as much as it can be. But you got Rutger Hauer playing these badass cop going against hunting down this murderer that I won't give anything away, but that is just like always one step ahead of him. And it just has that lawman, like the world is like just beat up. Like global warming has melted everything.
Nice.
And it does feel like very cyberpunky, very grungy. And so it was actually really good. I enjoyed it.
Nice. All right, next here.
But it's just like, but if we go to that thing where you're talking about production value for a cyberpunk movie, it's like, you'll see the problems.
Yeah. Next here is Psycho-Pass. Have you guys seen that?
I think I've seen like one episode of this, and it is
It's really
very much
good.
in that anime feel.
Yeah.
It has very anime.
What I like is it's not too like sci-fi evolved beyond like we were talking about before. This one is definitely almost toned back a little, but like the weapons and what they're doing and predicting stuff and whatever, it definitely has that dystopian future, I don't know, tech element to it, and darkness to it. But I like that it didn't go too far beyond. The elements that they do have are grounded and stuff. It's pretty good. I like it. Next on the list, and I think that's on Psycho-Pass is still on Hulu. I believe you can go see that. Aeon Flux, man. I love the Aeon Flux franchise. The original cartoons when they were on like Liquid Television or MTV Oddities back in the day, I think is where I first saw it when I was a kid. And
that's where I saw it too.
Yeah, and then I remember downloading all the cartoons like back in the day when Napster and all that shit was a thing, and LimeWire, and you could like steal content. I remember getting those cartoons and being so excited.
You were your own little net runner.
Yeah, and I could watch those again. And now I have the DVD compilation of all the animated films, which is pretty cool. It has them all in order and everything. But I'm a fan of the live action film, which is what this one is listed as too. I like anything on Flux, but yeah, that's on the list.
I wasn't the biggest fan of the live action film.
How dare you?
That's because I'm sorry. I see Aeon Flux. I think like the liquid. I think
no,
the
I know.
Original. I just didn't think like it couldn't keep up. Like I saw what they were trying to do. It wasn't bad.
Well, I mean, goddamn, if they were gonna do
it was so
if they were gonna
compare the anime.
If they were gonna do it so close to anime, it would be borderline porn. I think they had to kind of tone down the nipple licks and the fucking crazy shit. Like they stuck with her being more of like an assassin, and I don't know, the aesthetics in the set design I can get lost in, man. I love that shit. But yeah, I know what you mean totally. But I'm a big Aeon Flux fan, so I'll eat that shit every day.
It's a great series.
The next on the list is Mr. Robot. I'm a huge fucking fan of that series. I love that shit. You guys?
I haven't seen it. I can't comment.
Sean, I see you voted for it.
Yeah, I meant to refer to this one before when you said iRobot, I thought you were saying Mr. Robot. It was my mistake.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Robot, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Robot. I love that shit. That's very fucking Netrunner style. I like it because it's like the typical hacker sort of series or movie like we were talking before, but it definitely has that dystopian dark future vibe without all the futuristic shit, because it's not like it's set in the far future, but it has that vibe with the lighting and his drug use and the schizophrenia crazy shit in his head, and I don't know, it just takes you in this dark realm. It's really, I love that series.
And he's a fantastic actor.
Oh yeah.
So he really puts together that it's a tough role because he's an unusual character.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. Okay, next on the list, Ergo Proxy. You guys seen that?
I've seen a little bit of it. It's definitely one of those, I think it was mid 2000s anime, very dark, very cyberpunk. Character looks like Amy Lee from Evanescence.
Yeah. No, I love it because of the style,
It's very stylized, I think.
Exactly. But I love that one. And I think that one's still on Hulu too. Either Hulu or Netflix, I can't remember. Next on the list is Mute.
Somewhere.
And Mute, I think I saw on, it was either Netflix or Amazon Prime, I'm not sure. But have you guys seen that?
I will say Netflix because that's where I saw it.
Okay, cool. You saw it too. Yeah, I was really surprised at how good that was. I had it in my list because I was like, all right, cool, I'll watch that when I don't have other things. It seems like it could be cool. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, they're totally tapping into like aspects of that world, you know?
I think they did a great job of, and is definitely one of those live actions that is, and that cyberpunk, the world of Cyberpunk 2020, like that 2020, 2077 in Red, that kind of, we're at that edge where everything is grungy, people aren't happy, like everything is stylized, but it's done so well, and you're seeing it from a perspective of someone low on the ground. It's like, I will say Mute, even though it wasn't the best movie out there, I think it's one of those core cyberpunk movies where you can watch that, you will know what cyberpunk is. And it was very subtle too. It wasn't like overdone in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like they weren't beating you over the head with this guy has a cybernetic limb or something.
And it was great acting too to me. Like, everyone was like almost over the top, but they were just to that limit where it was like you felt like everyone was a fucking character. You know what I mean? Like it was great.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Tank Girl. Classic, man. I love Tank Girl. I have all the
Tank Girl's pretty epic.
Yeah, I have all the comics, and then when the film came out back in the day, I loved it. Yeah, nothing more to say about that. I think everybody knows Tank Girl.
Tank Girl is a nomad's wet dream.
Yeah. It has that post-apocalyptic feel more than the cyberpunk, but it still has so many elements, with the corporation and the water scarcity and how they deal with it. And like, I don't know, it's just definitely nomad vibe. It's awesome. It's what I picture like cyberpunk is when you leave the major cities. It's Tank Girl world out there.
Oh yeah.
Next on the list, Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah.
This one I've only heard of.
That sounds familiar. Yeah. I haven't seen it, but that sounds familiar.
I've seen Brazil, and it's the guy from Monty Python did this one, and it's dark for sure.
Oh, that's that tripped out one, right? Like,
yep.
He's like a mechanic or something. Like he fixes stuff in this city.
Yeah. It's an older movie, right?
85 is Terry Gilliam.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I vaguely remember that. Okay, cool. That definitely has that vibe.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Yeah, I'll have to revisit that. It was tripped out if I'm remembering properly, but I was young.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Dark City.
I've seen this.
Dark City, I wouldn't say cyberpunk personally, but it has some cool elements to it.
It does. It has some minor elements, I would say. So that authoritarian little guy in the situation and being a cog almost, but also trying to figure things out. It'd be a great sort of mystery for a cyberpunk world almost.
Okay, well, this next one on the list, let Sean explain what it is, because it's Orphan Black. And I know when you explained, I was like, oh shit, that's cool. And I looked it up. I was like, oh, it's on Amazon Prime. So now they have like every season on there. I have them all on my list. I'm going to dive into that next week when Valerie's off. We're gonna start checking that out. But tell us about it.
Literally my favorite cyberpunk show. It's a Canadian CBC combination, and it's basically about clones. The main character, I won't give too much away, but it's the beginning. The main character is at a subway station in Toronto, and she sees basically herself. And before she has a chance to kind of go over this person and say, "Oh my God, we're like looked exactly the same," she jumps into the subway and gets hit. Right, she kills herself. And so then she's trying to figure out what's going on, but she keeps on encountering other clones of herself. And there's a whole big conspiracy going on, and it's a great, and the actress is amazing because she plays all the different clones, and there are scenes where she plays like 3 of her clones in the same scene all together, and it's just incredible.
Nice. No, I'm excited to start watching that. It looks cool, and it looks like it's
Yeah, that
good
reminds
production
me of
value too.
yeah, that seems like it reminds me of Whatever Happened on Monday on Netflix. One of those movies. It had
Oh
sort of
yeah,
a clone situation, not the same as this one from what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
telling me, but it still has that sort of clone and a lot of more mystery to it. So it
yeah,
definitely is.
yeah.
Sounds like it's a good one to watch.
Now this next
It's
one
great.
on the list, it's exactly what I was talking about when it's like, oh yeah, totally cyberpunk. I can get into it because of that, but you have to get past the B movie aspect, the low budget aspect. And that's Nemesis, and
Oh
I think
gosh.
that's the whole
Right it.
Nemesis franchise. From one up till now,
Yep.
like it's always like back in the day, the first one was probably the biggest out of the franchise. The one that had the most money was the originals. You know what I mean? Like it was the better
Mhm.
one. After that, they just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I think there was like the most recent one was done like last year, or the year before, and it was like, oh my god, like I can't even finish it.
I only saw the first one, and then there's like it started to pain me when I started thinking and seeing stuff for the others. It's just
Yeah,
like nope. There's only one Nemesis, and that was special in its own way.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
good.
Next one on
It
the
was good
list.
though.
Next one on the list. I thought I hadn't seen, and then it's the Cyber City Oedo 808, the
Yeah,
the 3 episode series or whatever. And
I have that in my DVD collection.
yeah, I thought I didn't see that when I can't remember who listed or was talking about it or something, and I think maybe Sean, you mentioned it too in the comments or something. And then I went and looked it up.
Not
I
me.
was like, oh no, you said it was on. Somebody told me it was on YouTube. I don't know, but I watched him. I was like, oh my god, I totally remember that shit from like the mid '90s is when I first saw it, and it holds up. It's still awesome. The dialogue is great. I even posted a little video clip from one of those episodes in the Cyberpunk Uncensored group on Facebook. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
I
it's
did.
yeah, where
Yes,
I
I
think it's
did.
like the techie girl, the scientist, and she's like, "Hey, are we gonna go out on a date?" And he's just so quick to be like, "No, we're not gonna go on a date." He's like, "Why? Why can't you go out?" And he's like, "Well, for one, the weather's bad, and I'm a cop, and you're this, and I don't want to go, and I don't feel good, and I don't like the food, and I gotta go places. I'm not doing it." And she's like, "Oh, so we can go tomorrow? Okay, fine, we'll go tomorrow. I'll pick you up." And it's just like, what the heck just happened? Like, it's so great, like just the sassy fucking wackiness to it. And
Well, Rob, the funny thing about that one, the guy who did Goku Midnight Eye, same guy who did Cyber City.
oh, okay, cool. Well, then I'm looking forward to checking that one out. Then, most definitely. Let's see on here. Next one is Batman Beyond.
Never saw it.
Very good.
Yeah,
Definitely Cyberpunk, I say.
yeah.
Really?
I think that'll work. I think a lot of the Batman films can kind of work in that sense when you look at like the villains being very like poser gang, like the bozos, if you will. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like I don't know. It just has that very Gotham is definitely Night City esque. I would say it's like maybe cyberpunk vibe, but pre-cyberpunk, whereas like a lot of animes push that evolved
I wouldn't say
cyberpunk
pre-cyberpunk
sci-fi.
because they've really been pushing like the genetics and
And that's
cybernetics and
that's
technology
true.
just was really expanding on that one.
Yeah,
And it brought a whole new bunch of problems for the Batman. Both of them actually.
yeah, yeah.
But I would
And when
definitely
you look
say
at
Batman Beyond,
and you look at
that was good.
some of the villains too, not just the booster gang, poser gang style of like Joker's people, but look at some of the other villains with their cybernetic esque sort of getup. So like it
Oh yeah.
definitely has that, like with Freeze and Bane, and
Well,
there's just so many characters in that. It's got that vibe. What were you gonna say?
oh no, I was gonna agree with you.
Oh, okay, I like that. Next on the list is Waterworld. Heather listed that. Heather is
Really?
she plays Stitch, the techie on Team 2 with Sean.
Mhm.
I think Waterworld could work. That can work. It definitely has that post-apocalyptic,
Yes.
that sci-fi touch of the evolving with the gills and all that. It has that, but I think the dystopian post-apocalyptic vibe to it and some of the tech, it probably in my book leans a little more towards steampunk-esque, if you will, post-apocalyptic steampunk, if you can. But
I
it
can
has
sort of see that.
but it has a cyberpunk vibe. I think it's good. I like the movie in general.
Yeah, I would definitely like
Not
in
bad.
the world of Cyberpunk, Waterworld will sort of be what you envision some of the pirates would be, like some of those pirate nomad
Yeah,
groups almost.
totally.
Right.
Like they would have that kind of aesthetic.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, I think just like Tank Girl, it's like maybe Tank Girl is what you can picture when you leave the cities of Cyberpunk, Night City and Neo Tokyo, and you head into the wastelands or whatever. You know what I mean? I think maybe
Yeah.
Waterworld is like what happens when you leave the cities and you get out to open waters, maybe where there's like fucking pirates and shit going on. I could see that.
What's next on the list?
Let's see. We got
Least yours.
classic Total Recall.
Love
Which
it.
one? We got
The
two
ori-
here.
Oh yeah, this is the 2012 one. So this one's okay, but it's not the.
I will give the visuals. It wasn't great,
Yeah, yeah.
but it
Yeah,
was fairly decent.
I'll
It,
s-
it hit the same visual points that like iRobot did, I think, in storytelling.
Yeah, yeah, to me it had the same fucking letdown that like the new Blade Runner did to me. Where like you have all this hope and then you see it and compared to the original you're like, "Damn it." Like it's just not enough.
See, I
Not
don't
enough.
compare Total Recall, the new one, to the original. That's the thing. I don't compare them.
Oh, okay.
I
Well, I guess
look at
if
them
you don't, you
separately.
can enjoy it a little better. You know what I mean? But to me, the second I feel that it's that vibe or that continuation, whether sequel, prequel, continuation, or completely different but under the same name or remake, whatever, anytime I do that, I'm always going to think of the original because that's what it's based on. I can't help it. But if you can separate that, I guess that would make it a better film.
Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot.
Yeah, so next on the list is Tetsudo the Iron Man.
Love
This
it.
one I only know in passing. So, Sean, you take it away. You know this better than me.
Oh, this is a real classic one. It's kind of odd, I guess. It's almost like an artistic thing, but basically, it's this guy who something happens and the machine parts start to kind of like take over his body. You'd have to see it to understand it. It's weird,
Okay,
but it's a
cool.
good one.
Yeah, it
It's
sounds
definitely an
cool.
interesting Japanese movie. I know that much.
Do you know if
Yeah.
is it streaming anywhere that you know where we could go check it out?
I think it's on Amazon Prime, actually.
Okay, nice. I'm gonna check that out. Next, Videodrome.
Okay.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, yeah. It's just
That's
one of
cute.
those classics. Taps into the elements. I see you guys voted for it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great one. I love it because also it's a Canadian director, so I always love when it's a Canadian director.
Yeah, and we should add to anyone listening or watching that you're Canadian if they haven't guessed.
Yes.
But all right, cool. Yeah, moving on. Equilibrium is next. I already said, love that fucking movie. For the style and stuff. I always get that. Like when I first think of that, and what was the other one? Ultraviolet or
Mm-hmm.
yeah. There's another one too that I always get mixed. There's like three. I can't think of it now, but I always get those mixed up when I say the names. But they both very stylized, like in what it is.
Yeah, it's like what Christian Bale and oh, the guy who always dies, Sean Bean, were in that, and it's a win for me.
The guy who always dies.
There's so much about this. Hey, he has like a record, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But both of them in that, like, he only has a little bit of screen time, but that movie it does a really great job of showing like sort of post-apocalyptic cyberpunk. Like, it
Yeah,
has
yeah.
a very solid feel for me.
Yeah, totally. And then next we have Tron. This is the 1982 Tron.
Hmm.
And I gotta say, I liked the new remake or whatever as well, or sequel, I guess it was, right?
Yeah, it was a sequel.
Yeah, I liked that too. I felt like they did a great job. But the original, obviously, like when I was a kid when that came out, it was just like almost mind blowing, like the glowing and all that shit. Like it was really cool. Anybody else want to add anything?
I think it's perfect for cyberpunk and sort of that the meat space into the net space idea. Like, it really expands on it, touches on something that a lot of these movies don't, of the net running aspects.
Yeah, and it
Just
has the
being
whole
in that technology.
and it has that whole death game vibe. You know what I mean? How like
Mhm.
all the old school cyberpunk-esque films always incorporate like some type of like game where it's like people are dying and we're using it as entertainment. You know what I mean? Like that's always so cyberpunk. I love it. Okay, next on the list, Hardware. Sean, you added Hardware.
Yeah, is definitely cyberpunk. It's I wouldn't say it's like the most amazing story in the world, but visually really cool. And it's basically a guy who goes out into the wastelands to recover, artifacts, and he brings back something that he doesn't realize it's still kind of on. It's a robot. He thinks it's just parts that he's going to be able to sell, but no, it's alive still, and it's not friendly.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it
Yeah,
sounds really
visually
familiar,
it
but
looks great.
for some reason I'm not remembering it, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it. But
Well,
it
funny
sounds
enough,
really
I
familiar.
think Dylan McDermott's in Hardware, who's also an automata, so
Oh, okay.
Dylan McDermott doesn't do well with robots.
That's
There
funny.
you go.
That's awesome. Next you added was Max Headroom. Max Headroom
Oh,
definitely has that
absolutely.
cyberpunk vibe.
For sure. It has so many of the elements, it's ridiculous.
And it's a classic, you know?
And ahead of its time, too, because it was really early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I heard something about they might be getting a reboot too.
I-
Not 100% on
Really?
that.
Yeah, I read something about that, but that was a while back. I wonder if that ever came to fruition or if it got slowed or something. We'll have to look into that. That'd be cool.
And the guy who plays Max Headroom is in Orphan Black.
Nice.
Oh, cool. That's neat. I'll have to look out for him. That's really cool. Yeah, next on the list, Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, I can see that.
And
Very-
that's a
very
classic.
classic.
I think that was probably, I remember after Lawnmower Man, and during that time was the time you could go to like your local mall and pay to get into one of those big virtual reality things. Remember, you would like put it on, and everything was just like cubism. Like you would walk downstairs and shoot like a gun, which was just this ball, not even a laser. It'd be like, boo, like go at your friend who was in
Yes.
another thing a little bit away from you. Anyways, that was like the first of virtual reality, but Lawnmower Man always had that sort of like, it got me into computers when I was a kid. Like I remember seeing that and being thinking it was cool. Like it was to me very like Netrunner vibe. You know what I mean?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's like it was one of that.
Mhm.
That one was showing like the fears of the net space versus the meat space kind of situation of moving between them. and
Yeah.
Just how technology can sort of be a little dangerous in the wrong hands.
Yeah,
Almost.
he was about to drop a serious data crash, man. He was about to take out everything, take it over. But
He's a little
yeah,
harsh.
yeah. The next one here on the list, one of those examples, like I was saying, that gets it right in enough of the elements that you can love it for a cyberpunk vibe, and thank God they had a big budget behind it because it helps sell it. But Demolition Man.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, I think that's got that classic, it has that cyberpunk vibe, that futuristic, techie aspect to it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
but like the style, like the amount that they put into that. I mean, just like even from the clothing that people are wearing in the background, you know what I mean? Like the little details, I think are just awesome. It totally takes you in that
What do you
world.
think of 3 shells?
What's
Yeah,
that?
Just the storytelling too,
Oh yeah, totally, yeah. And that's probably
because
like
it's a deconstruction of the action hero almost.
yeah, and it was like the first touching into like kind of what Altered Carbon ran with the like freezing of a body and bringing him out later to handle some business. You know what I mean?
A little bit.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Okay, next, Black Rain. That's not ringing a bell for me.
This one's actually really good. I've seen it before.
Which one?
Black Rain.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of Black Rains. Which one is it?
I'm gonna go with, I think it's the Michael Douglas Japanese, where he's a cop in Japan, because that's the
Okay.
only one I can think of that's cyberpunk. Of you have these two cops who end up going to Japan to investigate a crime, but since they're on Japanese territory, they don't have jurisdiction, so they have to sort of work through with the Japanese police force to go after the criminals, which I think were the Yakuza. And it was just
Nice.
a really like stylized noir 80s film. Like the cyberpunk and the science was real low, but you could feel that the essence of the cool, the elements. So I think it was definitely a good one. I would recommend it for anyone who sort of likes that neo noir that cyberpunk brings to the world.
Nice.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I didn't think of it as so much cyberpunk though, because I thought it was just more modern, kind of the way it is.
I'll have to
Oh.
check it out. I don't know.
It's good.
Yeah. Next on our list, Tron. This is the 2010 one, and this one actually got a little more votes than the original. And now I'm imagining it's just people being familiar. Maybe they like the better special effects because of the time that it came out. But again, like I said, I love both of them.
Yeah, they're both good. I think there was a cartoon series too.
Yeah, I think
Really?
you're right. Yeah,
Yeah, for Disney.
I
but
didn't
it was
see
still
that, but
young
yeah.
adult, so
yeah. Next on the list here, Altered Carbon Re-Sleeved. It's in my list on Netflix. I haven't watched it yet, but it's
Wait, is that
the animated. It's Altered Carbon, not the live action series, but it's
Okay.
the animated film, I believe it is. But
I
it's
think
called
it's in between what happens in the series.
season
Like,
1 and season 2, right?
no, I mean between when he goes into the thing and when he wakes up.
Oh, is
So
that
he's
right?
in there for those few hundred years, I think.
Oh, okay. See, I haven't watched it yet. I have it on my list. Yeah, next on the list here, Ghost in a Shell. This is the 2045 one, the one that's on Netflix right now. I added that. That one gets mixed reviews, man. Like anyone into Cyberpunk or especially into Ghost in a Shell, a lot of people that I meet either hate it or love it, and because of the animation.
I haven't seen it yet.
I
Can't
love
really
it. I
say
think
anything.
it has like a weird vibe to the way that the characters are. It has almost like a CGI-esque feel to it versus like Japanime style that you might be used to with Ghost in a Shell anime. But I don't know, man. I love the writing, the characterization, the way that they brought him in, and like I love it, and I love the animation. I think I still have a couple more episodes to watch. Me and Val watched that almost at least an episode every few days, but we try to draw it out because we really enjoy it. We didn't want to just binge it and be done with it.
No, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
Is that where Valve got inspiration for Raven?
Possibly. And anybody watching, yeah, Val's my wife. She plays Raven, the solo assassin on Team 2. But yeah, possibly. I mean, she definitely loves that series. Next on the list here is Dark Angel. Sean, you added that one?
Yeah, I love Dark Angel. I was so upset they canceled it.
Well, they had a good run on Fox, longer than most other shows.
Well, wasn't it only on for about 3 years? Or
Like I said, good run on Fox.
I never watched it. I never saw it.
It was actually really good. It had Jessica Alba. Who was a director? Somebody.
someone big.
James Cameron, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah, they had a good budget too.
Yeah, it was after there was an EMP that shut down all the grid everywhere, and it was like almost like a depression era, and there was genetic manipulation stuff going on. There was like a guy who was kind of part lion.
Yep.
At one point, yeah. So it was really cool. And like the main characters were all delivery people, on the bike delivery people, which I think is a great profession for Cyberpunk.
Yeah, that's what I'd have Panzer as. But it was, but also like one of the main characters was also, he's a hacker trying to make things better and show that the corruption runs very deep. And she pretty much plays a solo that's his legs on the ground, like doing all the little side missions.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
I would definitely say Dark Angel has a lot of good cyberpunk elements to it, if not just it is cyberpunk.
Nice.
exactly.
Well, next on the list, Escape from New York. Classic.
Awesome.
Great.
Not much more to say about it. It definitely has that combat zone, post-apocalyptic, but high-tech sort of low life, like gritty. You know, it has that cyberpunk gritty vibe to it. But it's a classic. I'm sure everyone's already seen it. If you haven't, watch it. What the hell? It's a classic.
Yes.
Yeah. Next, Elysium.
Elysium.
Elysium. Yes. I think I've seen
Never seen
that.
it.
I'm vaguely remembering
This has
that.
Matt Damon. It's the same guy who did District 9 and Chappie.
Okay, yeah.
This
I've
was
seen
the
it.
middle movie he did.
Yeah, it has like a sci-fi, but it has like.
See, I'd argue that. I say this one is actually very much into the cyberpunk world of you have everyone on the ground who is poor, trying to make it, corporations or anything, and you got the corporations living in the satellites like they do in Cyberpunk 2020 and 77, and they are like, you literally have a guy graft on a power suit armor to his spine to try to make a difference, not because he's doing it for good, because he's doing it for himself. It's like you can't get more low life high tech than that.
Yeah, maybe I haven't seen that. Maybe I was confusing that with something else.
Yeah, this one I think it hits all the points on Cyberpunk 2020 of like you can go in the book and you will see stuff. They have an AK
you will
rigged up
see
with
stuff.
like high explosive rounds.
That was awesome. Though. I mean, you will see stuff. But is there anywhere you know that it's streaming right now?
No, I don't.
Son of a bitch.
It might be on Netflix, but I haven't seen it pop up.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look because I thought I saw that.
Long.
I thought I saw it.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But the way you described it doesn't. I don't think I did. I'll have to look it up. Okay, next on the list, Strange Days. I'm sure we've all seen this.
Cool.
Yes.
Again,
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's got that. Fits in another one of those classics as far as cyberpunk and that dark vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely has that style to it. Just how the characters play.
Yeah,
like I want to say
their attitudes. Their attitudes. They're all like. I feel like
Ralph Fiennes had a lot of influence on Dodger there.
Yeah, I would say like
Okay.
the attitudes in that are definitely like the people that wrote the cyberpunk rule books and stuff. You know how like they have that sassy fucking
Yeah,
dark attitude or whatever. Like it just reminds me of that. Um,
totally.
yeah. Next on the list, Judge Dredd.
Don't don't know it.
Not
Oh,
the
really?
perfect, not the perfect representation, but really good. Trying at least for the like visuals, I say. And this is for the
Oh, yeah.
still Sylvester Stallone version.
Yeah. No, it had budget. You know what I mean? Like I feel
Hey, Rob,
like
you there?
they.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you hear me? You hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I thought maybe I dropped off or something. No, I think like again, like that's one of those movies that has like the budget, like the action, the effects, like it just has that gritty, like intense vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. When we get to Dread, it'll be an upgrade, but we'll talk about that one later.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, next, Alita, Battle Angel. Has anybody seen this?
All of them.
No. All of them.
There's only two, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I
No, I
think they're
haven't seen it.
awesome. The effects and everything, like it's just pretty fucking amazing. The cybernetic aspects to it. It definitely fits
Yeah,
that cyberpunk vibe.
it does. I would definitely give that one two thumbs up for understanding what Cyberpunk does feel like.
No, and it seems like
Where it's sort of
one of those movies that like if you love cyberpunk, you like you love it, and yet it's a movie like you didn't even know was coming. Like it seemed to have come out of nowhere. Like I didn't hear a lot of hype about it, and then all of a sudden it was out, and I was like, wait, what is that? You know, like
yeah.
I feel like they didn't do enough justice in the marketing of that film because it's fucking
I
it's pretty
think it was
cool.
coming at a hard time, and just the way the film industry is now competing against the Marvels and the DCs is it just it couldn't get the same people watching it, even though he had Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron backing it. It
I could
just
see that.
and hopefully the sequel comes out and it has a strong anime following too
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
books.
exactly. All right, next on the list, the Aeon Flux anime. We've already talked about the film. The anime obviously got, over two times the amount of votes than the live action film.
Because it's better.
Yeah, I think we all know, like, it's just got that fucking sexier vibe, and you can get away with a lot more in anime, like the action and the flipping, uh, how she's a,
Well, just the visuals alone,
yeah,
like
yeah. I
I
mean,
remember the cityscapes and like just how strange they were, but they really stood out.
oh yeah,
And the stories would tell, it did a lot, I think, not just for animation on the state side, but just how storytelling was for cartoons in a way. It showed that they could be adult over here too, as well as in Japan.
oh exactly, exactly. Next on the list, speaking of like that same sort of anime that kind of gets it right, Cowboy Bebop. Classic to me. I feel like it's going to fit in that for a long time, but it definitely, like most of them, it has pushes a little beyond the cyberpunk. It has that sci-fi sort of space
Yeah,
vibe to it, but it's still awesome.
it it feels more like a space noir than anything. Like the
Yeah,
Yeah,
cyberpunk is there, the elements are there, but it's not a cyberpunk.
yeah.
totally agree.
This next one I added Black Mirror. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but to me,
I
Yes.
man,
try.
I love it as much as Love, Death, and Robots in the sense that like it's it has a bunch of different things, but all within that vibe, and it might tap into a little bit of like suspense horror, if you will, but enough of it is fucking like dystopian dark future, like robotic
Oh
style
yeah.
darkness.
The
Definitely.
technology, everything, it lines up. Like every little episode does have enough to make it feel like this would be in a cyberpunk world, albeit we don't see the entire cyberpunk world, I think.
Exactly. Next on the list, you've already mentioned it, Dread, uh, the 2012. Um, that's the one that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
I
the
guess,
better the Judge Dredd movies.
yeah. I'm seeing. I thought you posted. I guess you voted for it, but yeah, Stefan posted that one. But yeah, obviously that one, gets a little more votes than the other. I see it's higher there on the list.
Yeah. But again, more Carl Urban, but it's just visually, the budget, the settings, everything about it. Like even the cybernetics they put in there were
Yeah,
solid, but not over the top. Like if you go in there as a cyberpunk fan, you're gonna see all the things that you know. But if you go in there just as a normal fan, you're just gonna see a good movie.
Right, and I think like you said, again with these, I think what separates a lot is budget. When you're going into live action, when it comes to cyberpunk style, budget is definitely going to separate you from you know a D, C, B, and A list movie. You know what I mean? It's not just going to be
Yeah.
the acting because with cyberpunk and stuff like you're relying on a lot of effects and cybernetics and weapons and vehicles and whatever. You know what I mean?
You need that budget.
Yeah. Next on the list, Altered Carbon.
Mm.
Don't have to say too much about this. I think it's a modern, badass interpretation of like that cyberpunk vibe. It's kind of its own thing. But man, does it
Yeah.
man does it not tap into like the slums and the ultra rich and like the combat zone sort of black market vibe versus like high rise fucking ultra rich corporation style shit, and then like the whole vibe of like police conspiracy murder style stuff and paying off like it has that whole I don't know, cyberpunk like society vibe. It might not tap into all the elements, but it taps into a lot of them. Has a little bit of that sci-fi stuff like we were saying earlier, with the freezing of the body and bringing them out. It goes into some other stuff, but I mean, hell, that's one of the rumors with Johnny Silverhand, right? That
Yeah.
his body was frozen.
Mm.
So, anyways, it taps into enough cyberpunk. I think, like, goddamn, like Altered Carbon probably is one of the better, more recent interpretations or versions or vibes or however you want to word it of cyberpunk. In my book, what do you guys think?
Well, I think if you remove the like space colonies and the sleeving, Alter Carbon is right up there with like Elysium and Mute of it is just like in that perfect slot of everything about it is just cyberpunk. But like only those two elements, but those two elements are really great for what they're telling the story in Alter Carbon. So
Yeah.
I find it great no matter what. It's like 90% as is.
Have you
So I
seen it,
wouldn't argue
Sean?
it.
Sean, have you seen it?
I it's funny because I was recommended to read the book by someone in a writing group I'm part of, and just after I finished it is when suddenly the series popped up. So I loved it. It was
Oh,
really
cool.
good and really kind of. I think, in fact, I like the series more than the book, which usually isn't the case.
Nice.
But I heard that the series and the book are sort of different, so you're not going to get the same feel from them.
True enough, yeah.
All right. Well, next on the list, classic RoboCop.
Yeah.
I think don't have to say much more about that. Everyone ignore all the fucking sequels after 2. I think like there's like 7 of them or something, and they're just not.
There's a lot of branches.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
comics are good though. I will recommend some of the comics, some of them.
Yeah, I feel like
There's a lot of those too.
RoboCop kind of had happened to it, kind of like what I was saying about Nemesis, where like the first one came out, it had some budget. Not that Nemesis is even close to RoboCop, but I'm saying in the same vibe of like RoboCop had budget and it was done well, and then as it went on, like it just got lesser and lesser budget to the point where like the last few are just, it looks almost like student film style, just like how the last Nemesis ones look like student film, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
And
it
they
is a
kept changing the ratings too.
Yeah.
They nail a lot of stuff in that one with the corporations taking over the city essentially, and
Yeah.
the robotic police units and all that. Just really cool and stuff that hadn't been done yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will mention the newer version did a fairly good job
Yeah.
at least hitting those same kind of points. It wasn't a great movie by any means, sort of, unfortunately.
At least it had
the
budget.
same actor from Alter Carbon, but
Yeah, at least it had
it had a
budget
good
too.
budget.
Yeah. So at least it looked right and all that, So like even if you're spoiled by the classic or whatever, at least it went beyond like all the horrible sequels that came after the original back in the day. You know what I mean? It at least did looked better. But I liked, I think was it RoboCop 2, and like those were good. I didn't mind that. I thought that was cool.
2 was the last good breath we had of the RoboCop genre. For the series.
Next on the list here is, like I mentioned, it's Love, Death, and Robots. I think the difference is you typed out "and" when you added it, and I put the plus symbol like how it is in the title on Netflix. But yeah, this one has a shitload more votes than the one that you added earlier. I think because it's been on here longer, and obviously people love Death and Robots. Can't say enough about it. every episode's different, but it all fits in that vibe in a different way. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is the one where the guy, like, well, I don't even want to spoil anything, but the guy Beyond the Rift or whatever, that one's fucking creepy and awesome. But anyways, I don't want to spoil
it touches each of those little mini episodes touches on so many different aspects of cyberpunk and just sci-fi.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. But I also love how like each one of them, well, most of them have like some type of twist at the end or like some weird dark, like, ooh, like it almost like touches on horror or thriller or weird, like, I don't know. It's really cool.
Well, it's like an animated version of Black Mirror almost.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next on the list, Johnny Mnemonic. I mean, classic. Johnny Mnemonic was probably like one of the first cyberpunk films that was like beyond the hacker movie style hackers, and into that like full on Netrunner with like the cyberpunk vibe stuff,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it had the budget. It had a lot of good visuals. Not as good as some of the stuff in Altered Carbon and Dread, but
Right.
for the time being, they knew what they were doing. And we have, well, Keanu Reeves.
You have Keanu Reeves, and you
Probably-
have Ice-T. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was pretty solid.
Street Preacher.
It was like it wasn't the best movie. Oh yeah, Rollins was in there too.
Yeah, Henry
Yes.
Rollins was in it, man.
Henry Rollins, and he was in Batman Beyond, actually playing the same character.
Yeah,
Almost.
I'm a big Henry Rollins fan too. Like I love his
Black
music.
Flag.
Yeah, Black Flag, but I love all his music and I love his books. I've been to his spoken word live shows and stuff. Like big fan.
Well, hopefully we'll see him in 2077, maybe. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
that'd be cool. Okay, next in here is Ghost in a Shell, the anime films. That's going back to the original Ghost in a Shell, and like we were talking, the different sequels that came. This has a shitload of votes because again, like it's the original. I mean, it's the classic Ghost in a Shell.
It's quintessential,
badass.
man.
Yeah,
You can't get away from it.
Yep. So moving on to the next, we're getting down to the last handful here. The next is Blade.
Yeah, but they're the most important ones, I think.
Yeah. Blade Runner 2049.
I did not like it.
Again, like I said, I liked it, but it let me down because I love the original. I think that it was good, but I would have to like see that without seeing the original, thinking like, oh, here's the next sequel to that or whatever. You know what I mean? But it was still good, man. It had the budget for all the effects, the vehicles, the traveling, the way that they did the city. I mean, just everything about it like looked great and everything. I felt like the story was too narrow. It was too it felt too closed in or something. I don't know. It was weird.
I will
I
agree
didn't-
with you on that. I think that's one of my. I enjoyed it, but I can see what you're talking about. How the story did feel sort of railroaded.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like there's a lot of character growth or anything of being surprised almost.
Exactly. There was no like.
But I enjoyed it too. I liked it. It doesn't hold a candle to the original, but we'll get to
Exactly.
that one when we get to it.
Yeah. Next in
Yeah,
the list. What were you gonna say there, Sean?
I honestly stopped watching halfway through.
Oh well, how dare you?
If you start a movie, you really got to finish it, no matter how bad
Oh,
it is. Sometimes,
I don't know
think.
that last Nemesis that came out last year. I watched like the first
Don't-
5
don't
minutes. I was like,
count
oh
those
no,
ones.
oh no. But okay, going down the list, we're at the top number 4 here, Matrix, and this is any of the Matrix franchise. I think they're all awesome. They definitely have more of that post-apocalyptic, not necessarily cyberpunk, but just like we say in all of them, it has enough of the elements and enough of like the style or the vibe or the feeling to where you can totally appreciate it and get that cyberpunk feeling from it.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Like visually, I think there's a lot of good aspects to it, like how they do the hacking for the characters, and I think the Animatrix has some actually really good
Oh, yeah.
cyberpunk sort of aspects to it too.
I don't even think I added the Animatrix to this list. I don't think anybody did. We need to add it. That should be, number 76, or that would keep it at 75 if you remove your Love, Death, and Robots and add
Yeah,
in the
but I would say the Animatrix falls right into the Matrix too, because
Yeah. No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. I think
and
it's
also we have the new movie coming out. Are they? I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but we're gonna get another.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did
I'm
see
gonna add
that.
one at the end anyway, so don't worry about your 75.
Okay.
I'm gonna add Cherry 2000 to the list.
Oh, I'd love Cherry 2000.
Cherry 2000.
Right?
It was awesome.
Okay, so we're still at 75. That's great. I wanted to make sure we were at least right with that. And by the time people see this video, by the time people listen to this podcast or whatever, this list might even be bigger because we keep thinking of things and other people do as well. But that's great. So if anybody's, like I said, on Facebook, go to the Cyberpunk Uncensored group and see for yourself where it's at. But yeah, number 3 is Total Recall 1990, the original Total Recall. And like we said, that's classic.
Paul Verhoeven at his best, I say.
I mean, the cybernetics, the weapons, like the little gadget stuff, like it's just so good.
The corporations, like the only aspect I'd say of that wasn't Cyberpunk was maybe the mutants.
Yeah, no, totally. That's what brings it a little beyond. But then again, like it has that altered dimension of what happens in Red, because Red has all that nuclear fallout. So who knows, what might evolve from that.
And hey, we still don't know if it wasn't all just a brain dance episode gone wrong. So
right, exactly. But I think
it was one long brain dance.
It taps into so many elements of Cyberpunk, though. That's why it's listed, I think, as number 3. Everybody voted. It's just so good.
And the visuals were just so amazing.
Oh yeah, just the fucking effects on that. And yeah, I just rewatched that recently, and the effects still hold up. Like there's some things like
they really do.
Where like there's like a distant shot when he's going up the elevator and he grabs a dude and his arms rip off, and like from the distance it's like, oh, you can see it's kind of cheesy. Like you can see the CGI aspect of the elevator or whatever, but because it's old school compared to now. But I love right when he does it, he throws him. He's like, "I'll see you at the party, Victor." He throws his arms down. Like I was like, so right, Richter, yeah. So like right when I noticed that, I was like, "Oh, that doesn't look." Then he drops that line. I was like, "Oh shit, that's right." Like it just, I don't know, like that movie fucking rocks because, everything from the lines and one-liners to the effects to the elements from Cyberpunk that are involved. It's great.
Well, the movie was based on by Philip K. Dick, and he's probably one of the godfathers of Cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Like so much of his stuff, like is tied to that.
Yep.
Number 2. That's why Total Recall is number 3. Number 2, Akira. I mean, we were already talking about Neo Tokyo, and I forget who listed Neo Tokyo lower in the list, and it instantly reminds you of Akira and other things too. I mean, Akira was probably one of the first Japanime films I saw when I was a kid that got me into Cyberpunk before I was really into Cyberpunk or whatever, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yep. It is just one of those core ones. Like visually, yeah. The city, like those skyline shots, the bikes, the characters, like those first few scenes.
Oh yeah,
where you're just seeing those bikes zoom around everything. Those are awesome.
It gets a little fantasy with the mutation, what's happening, but then I feel within that, when it comes to the cyber bike action during the mutations and the laser cannon use and all that sort of stuff, to me balances out because it pulls you back into Cyberpunk without thinking too much about like the mutant or fantasy side to it. You know what I mean? Like it still has the vibe even when it pushes it a little, like it's fucking awesome.
Well, even with that, you look at the mangas, like, and I've read them all and they are huge set. It is just like, it is so much more subtle in there because it becomes gradual. Well, with the movie, I think they just had to put it in because they needed that huge climax.
Right.
And in the manga, it takes forever to sort of really touch on that sci-fi part.
Well, exactly.
And it goes even deeper, I think.
No, exactly. And I think it's because at the time it's ongoing. You know what I mean? Like, so like a lot of times they'll draw it out to either make so many issues or have it as an ongoing or to keep it evolving or whatever. Whereas like the film, I'm sure, like when they write, they're like, okay, we got to fit this within like an hour and a half or a 2-hour typical film format. You know what I mean? And it has to have like I don't even think the manga was done when they made the movie. So I think he did nice. J.R. Martin thing, like, here's an outline. Yeah.
Get to this point, you're done.
Yeah. But yeah, I think can't say much more about Akira. It's a fucking classic. Everyone knows it. It has, came in number 2 here on the votes in the group, and this list hasn't even been up that long. Like I can only imagine as more people join the group, this gets more votes and things add. I imagine Akira is going to stay up there at the top and keep gaining. But yeah, Akira's number 2. Number 1, the original Blade Runner. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is why the newer one.
Which version, though?
Fell behind.
Which version?
The one that people saw in the theaters.
I couldn't hear you, Sean. What was that?
There's so many.
I like the voiceover.
The voiceover? What do you mean?
Oh,
You,
Blade Runner has like 5 versions of it.
you know where Deckard's like talking as they're flying around,
You're talking
and he's
about
telling a bit about the.
the remastered versions of the same film. You're not talking about the later version that we already discussed, 2049 and such, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's, I think, a director's cut, an unlimited cut, an extended cut,
Right,
the
right.
theatrical cut.
No. But the idea here is, comparing. Number one is the original Blade Runner, compared to the
Yeah.
new version, obviously, in these other films. So let's not confuse people watching and listening. It's the same. It's the same film.
Some people would argue that, honestly.
And this one has everything because it has so many great actors in it.
Oh,
I mean, really
Oh, yeah.
a lot. And then the soundtrack is fantastic. The visuals blow you away. The story's really good. I just loved everything about it.
Yeah.
we have Rutger Hauer again as well, too.
No, I think like the original Blade Runner, like I said, is the reason I can't enjoy the sequel, the one that came out, even though the one that came out, the 2049 one, had better visual effects. I think the other one, even with its practicals, were better in the sense that the film overall was better. So I could get lost in that enough that the differences with that won't pull me away from still thinking the original Blade Runner is the number one choice for me. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah. And it was like funny too, because this came out before even like Neuromancer even got released by Gibson, or
Yeah.
Gibson. And I think when he saw, he's like, "Well, I guess everyone's gonna think I copied this."
Right.
'Cause-
Well, look how everything. Look at Cyberpunk and like the role playing game and like how the and like the new. I think the cartoon is named after it, but like how they went to Edge Runner. So like, I think that plays into it too. Like you can just see the influence all around.
Yeah.
For me, it was the first Cyberpunk movie I remember ever seeing. It was. I started off Cyberpunk with Heavy Metal magazine that a friend of mine had a subscription to, and so we'd all like look over his shoulder reading it. I remember seeing the ads for Blade Runner and that. So as soon as it came out, we were all running to see it, and yeah, it held up for sure.
Yeah. No, totally.
Oh yeah.
But that's why
Also, I agree that heavy metal is a great place for cyberpunk stuff, even now
Right.
still.
Yeah.
It was a great magazine
That's
period.
funny that you brought that up. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, that's I think why Blade Runner is number one. I think everyone agrees between the elements involved, the effects, the story, the timing of it, just everything that film pulled off is just very much cyberpunk. And then comparatively to like the sequel and even other films, it has so many more aspects and elements and things to it that lean into cyberpunk more than other ones comparatively, that it ranks number one, even being an older film to some of the newer.
Well, it came out like exactly at that perfect time of the moving into the 80s, and it's just you see these corporations, you see excess, you see money, you see like all these little guerrilla conflicts in the South America going on.
Right.
It was just that perfect time between Blade Runner, Neuromancer, and like Cyberpunk coming out a few years later. Of like, well, this
So
is
true.
Cyberpunk as whole for the world.
So true. Yep. All right, cool. Well, hey, that's a huge list we got through there. And like I
That was
said,
a lot of movies.
yeah, a lot of movies and series and animes. I'm sure it's going to grow. You see how like every few days that I go to the group, like there's a new one or a new vote to a one. Like I see them moving. Even while we were going through the list, one of those shifted up a little because someone voted for it, because we're live. Just anybody watching or listening to the podcast or watching the live stream on Mulligan Live on YouTube, this is live. So like as people were voting, things shift, but you see how it's active. I'm curious to see where it goes, and then also with new additions as more films and shows come out. But yeah, anybody watching and listening, if you're listening to the podcast Cyberpunk Uncensored, make sure you find the Cyberpunk Uncensored group on Facebook and join. Make sure you follow the Instagram Cyberpunk Uncensored account. Make sure you like the official Cyberpunk Uncensored fan page. If you're watching the live stream of this Cyberpunk Uncensored podcast episode on YouTube, which is Mulligan Live on YouTube, make sure you go and check out the podcast, and vice versa. If you're on the podcast, go check out the YouTube. We just want support on all platforms. We want Cyberpunk to get more and more popular. We want the community to grow. We want more players, more GMs, more games to watch, more gameplay. more talk about it. And that's why we're here, to help. So if you're seeing this, please share, subscribe, like, and thanks for watching and tuning in. Thanks so much, Sean and Eric, for joining me and contributing to this episode, man. You guys are awesome.
Hey,
Thanks
it's been
for
a pleasure.
Hell yeah. And I'll be seeing Sean, I'll be seeing you tomorrow for our session with Team 1. And then Tuesday, I'll be seeing you, Eric, for Team 2.
Yep.
Awesome.
We got to come up with better names.
Yeah, well, I start with Team 1 and Team 2 until we see what people want to call their team or how it develops, But at least keeps it organized for all the live streams. So like if you go to Mulligan Live on YouTube, you can easily follow the sessions, session 1, 2, 3, and 4, and whatever in order. You just look for that parentheses in the title or description that either says Team 1 or Team 2, so you follow the same storyline. And you might also see where some of these stories intertwine, which is kind of fun. But all right, guys, thanks so much. Everyone, thanks for watching and tuning in.